Melissa, I need to talk to you about this project that's due next week. And immediately I'm freaking out a little bit because I have so many other things to do between now and then. I always say your path to a promotion is paved with good conversations.
Hey everybody, Donnie Andrews here. I wanted to take a moment of your time today, a moment, more than a moment, really, because there's good value that I'm about to drop on y'all. As you know, over here at Free Range Thinking Business Strategy Consulting, we help businesses do well so that they can do good in the world. And one of the tools that we really use often to help our clients move along is communication and negotiation skills. And so I am bringing you today my go-to person, my person for negotiation training. Her name is Melissa Hereford. We have had the pleasure of knowing each other, oh my God, I think
Lots
it's
of
like,
years.
it's more than 2 decades.
Yeah.
It's more than 2 decades. So she knew me when my hair was longer and wider and my wrinkles were actually pushed up into my face.
What wrinkles?
I know. HD makeup. So I wanted to take a moment. Here's why I'm bringing Melissa to you today, and specifically for my female friends and clients out there. Melissa is a negotiation expert for women, and she helps them get what they want and earn what they deserve at work, and also build incredible relationships so that they're setting themselves up for successful futures in their careers and in their businesses. And she has been in the negotiation field for more than 20 years. She has trained executives, teams, groups inside Fortune 500 companies. And she's here today because we're going to talk about the 3 negotiation mistakes that women are making that are keeping them from earning what they deserve and getting what they want at work. And I'm super excited to get into this topic with all y'all. So let's just dive right in. So, hey, Melissa.
Hey, Dawn. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm really glad that we're peeling the curtain back on this topic a little bit.
Yes.
Especially now, we're in an amazing moment for women.
Yes, we are.
We are finding our voices. We are being heard. We are not being turned into people who are being shamed or that we're histrionic or we're crazy. People are actually hearing what we have to say. We're making a difference and making a dent, but we need to know what to do with that newfound power and newfound collection of voices that we've gathered. And this is why I was really excited to talk to you today, because it's not only just about what happens at work, but it's about the relationships that we're building moving forward and continuing to build and maintain this power and empowerment that we're finding. So my first question to you is, give me your definition of what negotiation means to you, because I find in talking to many of my female clients, they're very allergic to that word. There's something about it uniquely that either sounds very male or it's just not a word that's usually in our zone. So tell me a little bit about your definition of negotiation.
That's a great place to start. I love it because this is going to blow your mind. This is going to rock your world, and it's going to change the way you think about negotiating, because I find the same thing. When I say I teach women how to negotiate, the women look at me like a deer in the headlights. Like, oh my God, I hate that. I dread that. It's one of the things that I dread the most every year when I have to negotiate or not negotiate with my boss. So it's a great place to start, because negotiations are just a conversation that you have when you have to come to an agreement with someone. That's it.
It's that simple.
Right? Like it really is that simple. You are negotiating all day long, every single day. It's not just those once a year negotiations where you ask your boss for a raise, where you talk about getting a promotion. Those are really important conversations for sure. And you need to be prepared. And we're going to talk a lot about that today.
Okay.
And I talk a lot about it in my course, Negotiate with Confidence. But here's what kind of takes the pressure off of women when I say, listen, these are conversations you're having every day, all day long. What are the project specifications? What are the deadlines? Who's going to be on this team? What are we going to have for breakfast? What are we going to have for dinner? Where are we going to go for cocktails after work? These are all conversations that we have all day long, every day, where we have to come to an agreement.
So what do you think it is about that particular place that people have negotiations, that annual salary review, or you've been on projects and you're looking for a raise, or you're a business owner and you're looking to negotiate a deal with somebody? What do you think it is about that moment that somehow freaks people out?
I think for women, we want to be likable. It's really important to us. And we think at a very deep, at the core of our beings, that being likable is not possible if you are saying clearly what you want. We think that we're going to be labeled as bossy or aggressive. Many of us have heard throughout our careers, you just have a little bit of an edge to you that people don't like. Or if I say no, or I change the specifications of what you're asking me for, I'm somehow labeled as being difficult. And
Mm.
once you get put into that category as a woman, it is like against our very natures to exist in the world in a place where people see us as hard to work with or difficult to get along with. And of course, I'm generalizing here. Not every woman feels that way, but the women that I work with, the women who are attracted to me and my message and what I'm teaching about negotiation, tend to relate to this.
Yep, I can understand that. Well, let's see if we can break down some of those barriers. So one of the things that you and I wanted to talk about today were the 3 mistakes that women are making that are keeping them from getting what they want and what they
Yeah.
deserve at work. And it was interesting. So for all y'all at home or out there watching and listening, it was really interesting talking with Melissa about this, because there are things that we know we do,
Mhm.
like maybe we talk too much, like we say more than we should, or, in the olden days for me, like, to be vulnerable and share a little bit, I used to be a weeper. Like whenever it was time
Yeah,
to say what was on my mind, like the tension would rise and my voice would get very high and fluttery, and I'd be in
right.
a place where I couldn't find my power. But to me, these are obvious things. These are the things that we already see in ourselves that are getting in our way. And what I'm excited to hear from Melissa today is the things that we don't see, the things that are hidden from our view, but that we can make changes with, that will give us back our power. So
Yeah.
what you got?
Okay, so what I find, one big mistake that we make is that we think when we go into a meeting, it's a one and done deal where we have to leave that meeting with a deal in place. And this can be really constricting for us in many ways because, one, if you get emotional, if your boss or whoever you're meeting with says something that you weren't expecting, or says no, or says, anything from, listen, Melissa, I need to talk to you about this project. It's due next week. And immediately I'm freaking out a little bit because I have so many other things to do between now and then. I think that we have to come up with an agreement in this moment. So the mistake is that women don't realize that you can say, I need to think about it. I'll get back with you tomorrow. And this is really powerful when you have people who are putting additional deadlines on you. So remember, I said negotiations are every conversation. If your boss comes in or the project manager comes to you and says, listen, we need to move that deadline up, you don't have to respond in that moment. You can say, well, let me look at my calendar and get back to you. And you're doing a couple of things in that moment. One, you're reclaiming your power over the deadline, and you're giving yourself some space to think, to come up with some questions in order to move the conversation forward in a different way where that person doesn't own the outcome. You have more the ability to contribute to that outcome in a different way, a more powerful way where you're owning that outcome. So that's number one, is
Well,
thinking that it's a one and done deal within one meeting.
and it cuts both ways, the one and done. And I want to call this out, especially for women that are in the early stages of career building or even
Mhm.
business building. If you're in your first, second, and third, or even third job or third role in a company, this nugget is especially useful for you, because it's not just about it's not one and done on your end, but it's also not one and done on their end.
Good
So,
point. Yes.
it's not that you can, not only that you can just say, you know what, thank you for that information, or thank you for that request, I'm going to take a minute and think about it, and I'll get back with you tomorrow, or I'll take
Yeah.
it into consideration. but also that you're not approaching your conversations like everything has to be buttoned up in one conversation, that you're going to walk into your boss's office and have one conversation about a shift in role or a shift in salary.
Yeah.
It never happens that way. But when
No.
you're new into your career, what comes up is the only negotiations that you've had around getting what you want in this way have usually been related to school or
Mm-hmm.
parents, where it
Mm-hmm.
is mostly a one and done situation. But in the work world, that is just not the case. It
Yeah.
takes time and it takes installments
I
of
love that.
conversation.
Yeah. I love that installment. So imagine that you are your boss for a minute. Okay. And somebody comes into your office and says, listen, I've been doing all this great work. I want to get ahead. I want a promotion. And you're like, wait a minute. Okay. This is the first conversation we've had about this. Getting a promotion requires thought and planning. Getting a raise beyond the traditional like 3% or whatever may be built into your boss's budget is going to require planning. They have to go and put together their budget. They have to think about who's going to replace you if you're moving into a new position. There's so many moving parts that are happening behind the scenes that you don't see. Uh, Knowing that and going into each conversation as one step. I always say your path to a promotion is paved with good conversations.
I love it.
Is that good?
And
Tweet that, baby.
tweet it. Your path to a promotion is paved with
Good conversations.
nice. So, and just as a button on this, as somebody who is in the hiring chair, depending upon how large the company is and how many people are involved, when you step into that room to have that conversation, your person may not know the full extent of what you do every day.
Right. Good
They
point.
know it's on the job description, maybe.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, they knew it when they
Excellent.
hired you, but they may or may not have checked in with you on any
Mhm.
regular basis.
Right.
So you're coming in revved up with all these great things and all this value that you're providing and all these projects that you've crushed it on. And they're going through their 2,000 emails in their inbox and whatever else is in their day. So installments, good conversations, as you would
Exactly.
say. All right, good takeaway. Okay, so tell me, what's another mistake that women are making?
Okay, so another mistake is related to what you say. So I break conversations down into 3 steps: what you think, what you say, and what you do. So we just talked about what you think. And that is what happens before a negotiation, before a conversation. You're paving the path, right? What you say is during the negotiation. During any conversation, there are things that you can do and say that will be more or less beneficial to you. So the first thing about what you say, the mistake that people make is not being totally clear and prepared and practicing what you're going to say. Okay, so you think about exactly what you want and you get really clear on what you want.
So
And
give me
then,
an example, Melissa, of like, you know, sometimes we think we're clear, or at least
right,
in our minds to us, we're clear, but we're not
right,
actually clear enough that it's going to land with the other person. So can
yeah,
you give me an example of what that looks like?
I can give you a million examples. Here's one. I won't. Here's one. I'd like to talk to you about my career path.
Oh my God, that's my nightmare. Like to be on the receiving end of that. Again, 2,000 emails, things that I'm
Right.
trying, big projects, like okay.
I have some ideas based on the accomplishments that I've done, which are 1, 2, 3. Here's the direction that I could see myself moving in. 1, 2, 3. Based on the research that I've done, here's what the salary might go up to. And you always, when you're talking about a salary range, this is like a little tip here that you can use right
Bonus
away.
tip.
Bonus tip: when you're talking about, tweet this, baby. Okay, when you're talking about a salary range, always say, "I've done my research and I know that the range goes up to 100,000." So rather than saying from 50 to 100 or from 80 to 100, just talk about the high end. Okay, so that's a little bonus tip. So you're clear about what you want. I'd like to move in this direction. I've done some research on these 3 things. I'd like to talk about 1, 2, 3. Whatever your goal is, get really clear on what it is, because you can't ask for it if you don't know what it is.
And what I
Right.
love about that, again, because I'm kind of flip-flopping being the employer's perspective.
Yeah.
So what I love about that is a couple of things. One, you've done most of the work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it may or may not fit into the budget. It may or may not fit into what's going on in your particular group or with projects related to your particular group. But when you've done all of that pre-work and come
Mm-hmm.
into the room with that already, you've relieved most of the pressure from me to try and sort out what's going on for you. Because
Right. Exactly.
if you're
Like
there, I
imagine.
value you, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And imagine you've got 2,000 emails in your inbox and somebody comes in and says, I'd like to talk to you about my career options. What do you think I should do? Like, what do
I
you do
think
now?
I think you should head out of the office and I'm going to have a cocktail.
Exactly.
Well, and so to add another layer of preparation to this that can really make a difference is to think about what are the initiatives that your company is involved in, not just
Right.
your own role, your unique role, or even your team, or even your division, but like what is the company up to,
Right.
and where do you see that all interconnecting in what the company's up to? Because I personally, and most of the CEOs that we're working with to help them build their teams and build their companies over here, would be over the moon that somebody has thought so deeply
Right.
into the future of the company that they've come to say, here's who I am, what my skill set is, and what I can offer that's going to move this whole operation further into the future
Yeah.
that you guys have said you want.
Yeah, exactly. And let's break down the conversation that you're having to move your career forward and break that out from the conversation that you're having to collect data.
Yep.
Okay, so it is great, amazing to go in and talk to your boss, other division heads, other vice presidents, other directors, other managers, anybody you can get your hands on or get time with, and say, listen, I'd love to go out and grab a cup of coffee or buy you a cup of coffee and talk about what you're working on. I'm looking to the future, I'm looking at my career path, and I'd love to get some ideas about what's important to you so that I can see where I can add more value.
Okay,
And
people
then
that
you're
are
asking them a
listening,
million questions.
you
Like,
you got it.
yeah,
People out there, they have got to know this is gold what you're sharing with them right now, because this is the stuff that's behind the wall.
yeah,
Like when you let's say you and your coworker are standing outside your boss's office, he goes in potentially, has a conversation, comes out, promotion, raise, leading a
yeah.
new team, whatever has happened, you're like revved up, you're ready, you've prepared ish, probably not using the tools that Melissa has been dropping since we got on this Zoom call. You walk in, you have whatever conversation you have. You're probably coming from a place of one and done. You're probably super emotional. You're doing your very best, but you are not fully prepared and you don't have the tools and the skill sets that are available to you and that are totally learnable.
Yeah.
And so you come out, completely different result, but you don't know what happened behind the door. What Melissa has just been sharing is what's happening behind the closed door.
Yeah.
This
For
is the
some
stuff that
reason,
people are
guys,
seeing.
yeah, for some reason, guys, men just know how to do this. And there's a lot of research behind why, starting from when we're children, the fact that girls are taught to be more likable, and that means not asking for what you want and not speaking up. But don't judge yourself because you don't know how to do this. These are learnable skills.
Totally.
And they're not, at no point would you ever hear me say, change who you are to get what you want. You can totally be yourself
Yep.
and still get curious and still ask questions and find out what's going on. And then you can still be likable and go in and ask for what you want.
I think of it like kind of like driving a car. You're still
Yeah.
you. Like
Yeah.
your core, the core of your being is no different behind the wheel of a car than it is in a negotiation. And
Well,
you've
some
got
people
certain
might disagree
skills.
with that, Dawn, because I've known some road ragers that are like, whoa,
Like, whoa, where did that come from?
leave that anger behind.
Okay, so maybe that's true. However, I'd like to think that 85% of the time
Right,
that
exactly.
I'm still the same person behind the wheel and I just learned the skills to drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
And
what we're
other
talking about
examples
here.
are, if you were going to go make a presentation to the board, you would learn how to use PowerPoint or Keynote. You would learn how to use the remote control on your phone in order to change the slides.
Yep.
Or, with a remote control. You would learn how to use Excel if suddenly you were promoted into a management position and you had to put together a budget of your own. You would learn how to do that.
For
And
sure.
negotiation skills are conversation skills. And I'll tell you another little secret, Dawn, is that these skills are not just for work. In fact, I credit the success of my happy marriage of 23 years with using these skills together to communicate more effectively with my husband and he
Nice.
with me because we do it together.
See, now, how about all that? That's extra added bonus right
Yeah.
there. Okay, so let's button off. So mistake number 2 that you find people doing is,
Yeah. Is not being clear about what you want, writing it down, practicing saying it so you can say it out loud in the
yeah,
moment.
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about, I'm loving every single one of these. So tell me mistake number 3.
Okay, mistake number 3 has to do with action, what you do. So remember, we talked about what you think, what you say, and now we're going to talk about what you do.
Okay.
A big mistake that people make is not documenting the outcome of your conversation.
Mm,
Let me give you an example. I hear
okay.
this all the time. I had a great meeting with my boss. We talked about, I'm going to do these 3 things between now and the next 6 months. And then, assuming I accomplish those 3 things, I'm going to get a 10% raise. Great. Did you write it down? Did you document it? Because in 6 months, if you don't document it, there's a very good chance you're going to show up at your boss's door and say, hey, guess what? I accomplished these 3 things. I'm ready for my 10% raise. And your boss is like,
Say what now?
what? That wasn't what I thought we agreed to. And you don't want to let 6 months go by. That's 6 months wasted, where you could have just sent an email afterwards. Hey, it was great talking with you today. I really appreciate your time. I'm super excited to be working on these 3 things. And my understanding is this. Did I get that right? Bam.
And then put it in an email, put it in your, if there's an HR file to be put in, to have it be put in
Right.
your HR file. And I even
Exactly.
recommend scheduling that appointment for 6 months from now
Great
with
idea.
your
Yep.
person's secretary. It may or may not stay on that same day,
Yeah.
but it puts a pin in it for you and for them that this day is
Exactly.
coming moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a great tool to use if you're interviewing for a job and they say, we can't pay you that at this time. You can use the same tool to say, if I meet, what would I need to meet in order to hit that higher number? It's a great tool to use when you're working on any project with other humans where misunderstandings can occur. Just sending out a recap email saying, I understand that Melissa's going to do this, Dawn is going to do this, these are the due dates. It just cuts through any misconceptions where you get to the end of the project and you're laying out for the team what happened. And the person who was supposed to be doing the graphic design is like, I thought this was due next Friday. You just really cut through any of those misunderstandings.
And see, I imagine that a lot of folks, as they're progressing in their careers and even progressing and leading their companies, they're using these documentation and follow-up skills in other areas,
Yeah.
but it's sort of like you go blind to it in these particular moments because, one of the things that you and I have talked about behind the scenes that I think is really important is that in these moments, especially for women, we go blind to it because our value, our sense of our own
Right.
personal worth is on the line.
Right.
And it's like, how they talk about your limbic brain, your lizard brain, and then your thoughtful,
Yeah.
cognizant brain. It's like we go into our lizard brain. We're trying to sort of fight for our survival.
Yeah.
There's no survival issue on the line, but because our value or our worth is being judged.
Judged. Right.
Yeah, it's like we go blind to these important detail skills that really set us up for success moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. And we really tend to take things personally where we shouldn't. And, I hear it all the time where women say, well, he interrupted me. It was so rude. And it's this misunderstanding in language and body language and the things we say and do that women take personally that men just don't take personally. So again, I'm not telling you to change who you are, but I do encourage the women in my class, Negotiate with Confidence, to look at those assumptions really closely. And we do a lot of work on what those assumptions are doing to really harm you, not only professionally, but also at your deepest level of humanity. When we take those things personally, how much they hurt our self-confidence, our self-esteem, the way we show up in the world. If I think that the men in the room are interrupting me, or even women, honestly, we do interrupt each other, is it because they don't value what I'm saying, which is where I may tend to take it personally? Or is it perhaps that's just the way they communicate. They interrupt everybody. They don't just interrupt the women, they interrupt the men as well. So it's an important point to look at and to think about in order to help us move forward in a more productive way and to show up and be seen and heard in the way that we want to be seen and heard.
I think I agree with you. And I think as an interrupter, and one of the things, like here's one of the things that I've learned to do over time is that, especially if I'm just starting to work with a new client, I'll tell them, okay, so here's what's going to happen. We're going to have this conversation. It's designed this way. I will interrupt you if I find that there's something important that we need to pull out. It's not because what you're saying isn't interesting. It's that we've hit on something that's really important to call attention to. But that's learned language. That's a learned style. It's not like I popped out of the womb saying, I'm an interrupter. This is what I do. You know what I mean? I had to learn how to do that and start folding it into what I do. And I also think people get really excited too. Like
excited, yeah.
You've said so many things that I'm like, oh my God, yes. I want to lean in. I want to say more about that. So
I am 100% sure if you watch this recording, that I will have interrupted you as well.
Oh,
so because I get excited and I jump in. So I think in those moments where you and I are on the same page, we're totally collaborative. There is no doubt in my mind that you support me and want to hear what I have to say, and you feel the same way. But when I'm feeling vulnerable and maybe I'm the least powerful person in the room, or I feel like my authority is being challenged, it's very, very difficult to see those moments in the way that you and I are kind of reframing them. We see those moments as being personal attacks, as being challenging my credibility. And sometimes they are that. So you have to also just accept that sometimes you get interrupted because somebody is trying to diminish your authority. But oftentimes it doesn't have to do with you. It has to do with them wanting to look smarter, wanting to look better. It has to do with the way they want to be perceived, nothing to do with you.
And the reason, here's why I think this is so, like, this is our third mistake that we're unveiling here, and that I think is so important. And we've digressed a little bit because the third mistake was being able to document things.
Right.
But what we've moved into a little bit is a conversation about learning how to translate the behavior of others, and and then from that translation, how we choose to react to it. Because it's so important, not only because of it having the ability to diminish your confidence, your ability to speak up, to be powerful and to be included or to lead in whatever role you're in, whether it's at home or at work. But it's also really important because it's what you start building on. So it's not just that you had a moment and you felt a lack of confidence, or you felt like, God, why did that person have to say that? Because now I feel like I'm questioning everything that I did. The problem is that then you take that and you start taking next steps from that frame of mind. So you're actually building your career or your next step or your relationship or whatever it is from this place of insecurity, and you're knitting yourself into a future that is not where you want to go.
Right. So
we've got to learn how to read people and see what's going on and be able to translate it a little bit, like to have that just level of detachment to be able to understand where they're coming from.
Completely. And the great news is it's never too late. It's never too late.